Welcome to the Agile Engineering Deep Dive. My name is Alessandro Guida, and in this episode, I want to challenge a belief many of us take for granted, that Agile automatically puts users first. In many projects, users are shown small, disconnected features and then asked for feedback. That's not collaboration, that's asking users to debug our assumptions. We'll look at how user stories, when used without UX flows, interaction design, or storyboards, often lead teams to build correct features into the wrong experience. This episode is not anti-Agile, and it's not anti-user stories. It's a challenge to how we use them, and what we expect users to react to. If users never see the full picture, the question becomes, can we honestly say they're involved in shaping it? Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is where we take the sources you're sharing with us, the internal reports, industry research, all those articles you flagged, and we pull out the critical insights you need to get ahead. Today, we're diving into, well, a really deep and persistent pain point across the entire software industry: Agile development. Now, the promise of Agile, it's fantastic on paper, right? Speed, flexibility, real-time customer involvement. But the source material you all compiled for us asks this really provocative question. If we're so customer-centric, are we truly putting the customer first? Or are we just, using them as unpaid, highly frustrated, late-stage QA testers?
That critique is so necessary and is valid. It really hits the core inefficiency that so many teams run into. We're fast, yeah, but are we building the right thing quickly? Our mission for this deep dive is to isolate the one structural flaw that causes so much of this painful rework. We're going to analyze how one specific, really high-leverage design tool, the storyboard, can just drastically reduce confusion and lock in alignment before a single development sprint even begins.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the solution, let's drill down on why this confusion seems almost baked into our current Agile practices. The fundamental problem, and the research really backs this up, it lies in how we practice incremental delivery when it's done poorly. We're told to release working software in these short bursts, but often what the customer sees are just small, isolated features. They're forced to review these tiny, disconnected fragments without any of the necessary context, no sense of the full user journey or how it all fits together.
It puts a massive cognitive burden on the customer. I mean, if their main role is to catch fundamental design flaws, by looking at these little pieces, the source material argues that's not meaningful feedback. That's just outsourcing your debugging and systems integration to the client. We're basically relying on them to guess how these 5 different puzzle pieces are going to connect to form, a cohesive final product.
And that reliance on guesswork, on inference, that's a huge risk.
Yeah, the absurdity of it becomes so clear when you compare software to a more mature engineering discipline, like architecture. Let's use the building a house analogy. Say you hire an architect for your dream home. You want a lake view, specific square footage, 3 bedrooms. The architect, in the spirit of rapid iteration, designs only the master bathroom first.
Just the back.
They mock it up, they build it in total isolation, maybe without even having a fully finalized foundation for the house.
And only after that bathroom is built, they show it to you, the client. And you say, wait a minute, I love the tile, but I realize now the window should have been, 40 centimeters wider to actually get that lake view.
Exactly, because you hadn't seen how the whole house was oriented or the flow for the master bedroom. You had no context.
So now you have to tear down a wall.
You have to tear it down, restructure the framing. It's completely ludicrous in physical construction. Buildings start with comprehensive blueprints, with mock-ups, 3D models, simulations, all to give a tangible sense of the space and the flow before a single drop of concrete is poured.
So that brings us to the core takeaway here.
Right. Why do we skip those essential blueprints, the storyboards, the architectural baselines in software? The sources argue that rushing into development with just a handful of user stories, no design validation, no clear architecture, that's often mistaken for agility. But it's not.
It's chaos.
It's just chaos. It absolutely guarantees painful, expensive rework down the line because you've just built a beautiful wall that's facing the completely wrong direction.
So if the user story isn't enough to be the blueprint, if it's only capturing one room, not the whole floor plan, what's the specific thing this research says we have to introduce? You mentioned it already, the storyboard.
It's the visual map of the entire experience. A storyboard in software is essentially a visual narrative. It shows how the user interacts with the system to complete an entire task. It's an ordered sequence of screens or states. And crucially, it illustrates not just the individual screens, but the whole flow between them. The clicks, the transitions, the inputs, the outputs. It captures the complete story of a user's goal from start to finish.
Okay, let's make this really concrete with the example from the source material, the online booking system.
Perfect example. If you were only using user stories, you probably have a few separate ones, right? As a user, I want to select a time slot.
As a user, I want to enter my payment details.
As a user, I want a confirmation email. Each one of those is a fine, isolated slice of work you can put in a sprint. But a storyboard starts at the very beginning. Panel 1, the user lands on the home page.
Right, no.
Panel 2, they put in their search for a date and location.
Panel 3, they see the results.
Right. Panel 4, they click to select their slot. Panel 5, the system shows the payment screen. Panel 6, confirmation. That single linear picture forces everyone, the customer, the developer, the UX team, to agree on the entire sequence of events before anyone writes a line of code.
It's the visual walkthrough.
What's fascinating here is understanding the functional difference between the storyboard and the user story. This is the whole engine for improvement.
And that's critical because every Agile team is fluent in user stories. They're short, they're structured, they're great for breaking down work. So if we bring in storyboards, aren't we just replacing these light user stories with heavy documentation? That sounds a lot like old school requirements gathering.
That's a really productive skepticism, and it's important we address that. Storyboards, when they're done right, are not heavy documentation. They're visual and they're meant to be ephemeral. They should be fast, low-fidelity sketches designed only to communicate the flow. They don't need every technical detail or non-functional requirement. The sources make this distinction really clear. User stories define what a user wants to do. They're tactical, they're sprint-focused, and they are input for development tracking. You use them to estimate work.
Okay, so they're for the project plan.
Exactly. Storyboards, on the other hand, show how a user interacts across multiple steps. They are a visual narrative that reveals the full user journey. Their purpose is to spot missing screens, logical flaws.
Or entire steps that the user stories just never captured.
Precisely. They are input for understanding and for validation.
So user stories tell the team what to build next week, piece by piece. But storyboards tell the team what the final connected experience should actually look like, making sure all those pieces fit together. You're validating the whole customer experience before you validate the code that builds it.
That's it. You shift the focus from just checking boxes on a feature list to making sure the entire operational flow is correct and intuitive for the user.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. If they provide this much clarity, if they reduce risk so effectively, why are storyboards so often the first thing to get cut when a project timeline gets tight? Why aren't they just standard practice everywhere?
The reasons are really deep-seated in software culture, and they often boil down to this false economy of speed.
Yeah.
First, you've got just acute time pressure.
Yeah.
Creating storyboards takes a little time up front, and that's exactly when everyone is screaming to just get started. Teams feel this pressure to skip it just to show some immediate momentum.
Which brings us to a deeper issue, right? Our culture often confuses activity with progress. We equate progress with writing code.
That's it. Teams feel like they're doing work when they're prototyping or coding, even if they're just coding to figure things out.
Yeah.
And that approach, coding to figure it out, is maybe the single most expensive mistake a team can make.
And that leads to the third cultural barrier, this misconception that storyboarding is extra work or it's some kind of luxury item for big, heavily funded design teams.
A view that completely fails to account for the immense cost of building the wrong thing quickly.
And we actually have hard data on that cost. The research quotes these widely accepted industry figures, like from Steve McConnell's work, which show that requirements errors you find and fix early in the storyboarding phase, they cost a staggering 5 to 10 times less to fix than if you find them later during coding.
And it gets truly terrifying if those errors get out of testing. If you find those fundamental design flaws in production after release, you are looking at a cost multiplier of up to 100 times what it would have cost to fix the flow on a sketchpad.
100 times. When you think about that 100x cost multiplier, it just makes you wonder how many development hours are wasted globally every single week fighting fires from design errors they could have spotted in a 30-minute whiteboard session.
It's rampant. The Standish Group's CAS report has shown, decade after decade, that a lack of clear requirements and poor user involvement are always among the top root causes of project failure. The time teams think they're saving by skipping storyboards is just spent later. Rewriting code, redesigning interfaces, refactoring entire systems, that time saved up front is just time debt that matures with a punching interest rate.
So clarifying the problem early is always cheaper than fixing the code later.
Always.
Okay, so we accept it. Storyboards are essential blueprints for preventing this costly rework. Let's pivot to implementation. How do we integrate this crucial step into an agile framework without, falling back into the rigidity and bureaucracy of the old waterfall model? This has to be about smart sequencing, not just rules.
Exactly. The course provides a fantastic model for what it calls a more structured agile flow. It keeps the iteration, but it locks in clarity first. It's basically a three-step process.
Yeah.
Step 1, capture and validate the needs. This starts with your interviews and user stories, sure, but the process only finishes when the storyboarding is done. You iterate on those storyboards with the customer until they validate the entire workflow, until they say, yes, this is exactly how it should work.
And once you have that visual commitment from the customer, that's when step 2 comes in.
That's right. Step 2, define an architecture baseline. With clear, validated storyboards in hand, meaning you know what the system needs to do and how it will be used, your architects can build a solid, scalable foundation. This avoids that awful situation where architects have to just guess at the database structure or scalability needs based on a few vague user stories, which just leads to massive refactoring later.
Storyboards inform architecture. I like that.
And then finally, step 3, go agile. Now that you have direction and you have architecture, the validated storyboards translate naturally into a well-understood backlog of items for your sprints. The source has also introduced a powerful alternative here. If your team is under really tight constraints, a work breakdown structure, a WBS, which breaks the whole solution into clear, deliverable tasks instead of just estimating with story points, can be a really strong tool for managing that detailed work.
That makes the process sound so much more deliberate, much less chaotic. It really removes the guesswork. But what about tools? If a team wants to start storyboarding tomorrow, do they need to go invest in a whole digital design studio?
No, not at all. The source material is a strong advocate for starting low fidelity. For those early collaborative talks, all you need are whiteboards, sticky notes, paper sketches. The key, and the research really emphasizes this, is clarity of flow, not aesthetic polish. Stick figures, arrows, handwritten text. They're not just acceptable, they are preferable.
Why preferable?
Because they signal that the design is cheap and it's easy to change. No one gets attached to a stick figure.
Clarity, not aesthetics. That removes that internal barrier where designers feel like they have to make things beautiful way too early.
Right. And for larger scale or remote teams, you can move to accessible digital tools. Figma is great if you want to integrate wireframes and flow diagrams. Miro is fantastic for those collaborative workshops. And if you want something fast and focus purely on the interactive sketch, Balsamic is highly recommended. Its whole thing is low fidelity, so you don't waste time perfecting pixels. You stay focused on the navigation and the flow. So to reiterate the central thesis here, Agile isn't fundamentally broken. But when it's applied without design thinking, without the visual clarity of storyboards, and without an informed architectural baseline, it just becomes fragile. It guarantees that high-cost rework cycle we've been talking about.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? It means we have to change the conversation we're having with our customers. We need to stop giving them these small, disconnected puzzle pieces and asking for feedback on their shape. We need to give them the full picture up front with a storyboard. We use that artifact to build deep understanding, to ensure alignment, and most importantly, to establish trust all before we commit expensive development time to actually building the software.
And if you're leading a development team, and this inefficiency resonates with you, the single most impactful step you can take is to integrate a dedicated UX designer, someone with storyboarding experience, onto your core team. That expertise is a financial lever. It will pay for itself many times over by catching those 5x to 100x cost errors in the cheap early stage.
And if you want to dig deeper into the philosophy behind truly user-centered design, the source has provided some excellent foundational texts. We'd recommend picking up The Design of Everyday Things by Don Norman or James Kalbach's Mapping Experiences. They're absolute cornerstones of usability and flow design. As you go back to your work this week, maybe just consider how often you confuse progress, the act of writing code, with clarity, the state of knowing exactly what the user needs and how they'll achieve it. It might just be time to put down the keyboard and pick up the sketchpad.
Something to mull over until next time.
Keep diving deep.
Thank you for listening to the Agile Engineering Deep Dive podcast. If today's episode gave you new insight into working across teams or highlighted the role of discipline in achieving real agility, feel free to share it with your colleagues or your network. You can find the full written article along with previous episodes in the Agile Software Engineering newsletter on LinkedIn. And if you have thoughts, questions, or examples from your own organization, I'd be happy to hear from you. Your experiences help shape what we explore next. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.